Whether it's Ragnar Lothbrok being eaten by snakes, Rollo Requiem falls, or our protagonist Thora sinking to the depths of the ocean, Vikings are just plain cool, and this one certainly looks the part, but is Loki playing a trick on us? Or is this one made by Odin himself? Let's find out. All good Vikings should die in glorious battle. Not so with our heroine Thora, whose death at sea causes Odin himself to grant her one last chance at redemption, challenging her to prove herself by defeating the 5 Jotun, Norse giant elementals, using a massive two-handed axe, a set of unique skills, and the blessings of the gods themselves.
Myrkrið kom, en þegar ég vaknaði var ég ekki í höll þangs og beina, heldur í kyrrð og þögn.
The story is delivered through some beautifully voice-acted dialogue, which are all in Thora's native tongue and subtitled throughout. This adds a real otherness to the experience and elevates the game above similar titles. The spoken language has a beautifully melodic tone to it and feels steeped in historical relevance. If you're a fan of TV series Vikings, RIP Ragnar, no spoilers, you will know many of the gods you end up meeting or indeed killing. I enjoyed how the overarching story was even evident when you died. This was a nice touch and kept you firmly in the universe, even when death came calling. Occasionally your character will talk about the current situation. This always felt natural, and it usually educated the player on some obscure Norse mythology. For example, to highlight what a particular god can do to aid you and why.
Hinn helgi mýmisbrunnur, þar sem ég fórnaði auga mínu, mun endurnýja bæði líf þitt og krafta.
Environmental storytelling is also used very well, with the camera often panning out to give you a view of the land and flesh out the lore with words from the main character. A really lovely touch. Overall, this game has a story that had me engaged right away. The voice acting is excellent and the dialogue consistently good. Story gets 17 out of 20. Everyone loves swinging a huge axe, and here it's made very easy. Either long press X for a large slash that can sever even the largest of foes, or press Y repeatedly to swing the axe. This is an incredibly simplistic system which could, I feel, have been refined. While the swinging animations are lovely and work well, they end abruptly and there is a short space of time before you can actually move after having triggered the animation. The developer countered this, however, by adding a dodge roll mechanic by tapping B. This works well. Find yourself in imminent danger while attacking. A quick press of the roll button cancels all animation loops and tumbles you, hopefully, to safety. Later in the game, you're granted godly powers which recharge. These can be used with a tap of the A button, with the triggers reserved for cycling through these. Some may heal, while others create a decoy to fool enemies into attacking them. Allowing you to wail on them from behind. The controls feel tight, like seriously tight, but equally they feel oversimplified. Whether this is an issue or not is down to your playstyle, but I found myself happily dodge rolling around enemies and swiping them in the back without issue. No lock-on mechanic was quite noticeably missing here. Much of the gameplay is spent exploring some truly beautiful landscapes. Nine levels spread through 5 regions: nature, cave, winter, storm and fire. But I did find myself longing for more to do within them. Don't get me wrong, they offer some light environmental puzzles, but the lack of enemies within them and the general clone armies you will encounter at times can feel a little lacking. After an initial tutorial area, you'll be shown the overworld hub. This allows you to essentially choose the path you'll take in your adventure to defeat the giant elementals. While this hands-off approach was welcomed, not much indication is given as to what your choice means, particularly as each area is not equal and some are far more difficult than others. This, I suppose, can be viewed as a positive or a negative, depending on how much hand-holding you prefer. I liked it, and it meant I could just go exploring at my own pace. In each level there are hidden god shrines, which grant your character new godlike powers. There's also a golden apple to find, but that is pretty much the extent of the collectibles on offer here. Find the 2 runes in each area to unlock the boss. Boss fights are a different beast entirely. These are some of the best fights I have had and are a standout and often intense part of the game. It felt like a Dark Souls game when fighting some of these bosses in the best possible way. But again, it made the lack of advanced control options such as circle strafing more apparently absent. Having said that, I still enjoyed these moments, possibly the most, and it at least meant that each level held a moment of sheer exhilaration. With a feeling akin to euphoria when you finally solved the combat puzzle and brought them crashing down with a final glorious swing of your axe. Gameplay for me scores 16 out of 20.
Ég man eftir hljóðinu, þegar viðurinn splundraðist, ýlfrinu í vindinum og öldu skellunum í andliti mínu.
It isn't easy to create atmosphere that tells a story all of its own, but the developers have managed that remarkably. I mentioned the voice acting, which does an excellent job of conveying the brutal nature of the Viking people. What we haven't touched on is the music.
Auvirðulegi bardagamaður, ekki mistakast að ávinna þér heitli goðanna.
Dynamic music is used to great effect here, with the camera often syncing wonderfully with the tunes. I guess the closest thing I can remember to this was the swooping camera through Zelda Ocarina of Time, when they introduced you to a new area. Jotun does this in a more fluid way by leaving you in control of the character as it automatically pans the camera and cranks the epicness up to 9. Combat sounds are solid with the axe swings and specials all sounding suitably chunky. Bosses all sound excellent with heavy bass added to their attacks. While there are not a great deal of enemies to encounter, there are some really nice touches when you fight what is here. Impressive and unexpected moments pop up, like this one, where I swung my axe in an overhead manner and it sliced this plant monster in half with a satisfying wet thud. Ambient music does a good job of giving each area an identity. The overall audio is of a high quality. HD rumble is AWOL here. It's non-existent and a missed opportunity for sure. That sweet axe needed some HD rumble loving. It's a shame. Overall though, sound and music are fantastic and score 18 out of 20. This game is art. There isn't much more to say really. It is a beautiful looking game. Whether it be the frozen wastes or the lush forests, it carries a very unique aesthetic. The pastel colours are offset with sharply contrasting colours, and the overall feeling of a mythical world comes across. Animation is one area I really loved. It is very reminiscent of a good manga in terms of the character animation of enemies and bosses. It works brilliantly. Combined with the silky smooth 60 frames per second, and you're in for a real visual treat when docked or in handheld. Performance is on point and the whole game feels very polished visually. Each environment looks and feels different. However, I did notice quite a bit of asset recycling, which was a shame in a game where the levels weren't humongous. I understand the reason for this, but I noticed it all the same. There is a definite theme arising with Jotun, and that is that the star of the show in almost every area are the boss fights. That trend continues into the aesthetics as they just look brilliant. Their hand-drawn animation style works excellently. I give graphics 16 out of 20. The game retails at $14.99 or £10.99, has 9 levels spread across 5 unique areas, each containing a power-up, collectible, and there are 5 boss fights in total, as well as maybe one extra, don't want to spoil it. It tells an engaging story, but there certainly should have been more to do in each level. They feel a little lifeless at times. Thankfully, the climax of each is so engaging that you feel compelled to reach it. You also feel thoroughly rewarded in each level through the slow trickle of god power upgrades. Combat makes you feel powerful if a little under-skilled. The game offers limited replayability, however it tells an engaging and compelling story in a very skillful way with fantastic climaxes. It easily is worth the price of admission and for me gets a value score of 16 out of 20. Jotun is by no means the perfect game, but it does more than enough right to earn a place in my collection. I have found flaws in the game like the ridiculously slow heavy attack, but also some exceptional highs such as the sound, graphics and boss fights. As such, it gets a SwitchUp score of 83%. If this review was helpful to you, please let me know down below, hit the like button, hit the dislike button if you didn't like it. Thanks again guys, as always keep it Switch Up.